Join the conversation with the Morning Majlis, Pulse 95.
Chaos in Ethiopia. Its Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has appealed to citizens to take up arms to reportedly block advancing rebel fighters. He made this call on Facebook after the rebels from the northern Tigray state reportedly seized control of more towns in neighboring Amhara. The United States government has called for a ceasefire in this year-long conflict that has created a humanitarian crisis in the region, while the Tigray's People Liberation Front says they aim to break a siege of the northern region. The entire world is concerned about this situation.
Yes, absolutely. And Abe also urged citizens to organize and march through any legal manner with every weapon and power. And that is to prevent, reverse, and bury the terrorists TPLF. Those are according to the words of Abe. Now, his comments, they coincided with the rebels reportedly capturing the strategic towns of Dessie and Kombolcha in Amhara state. That's just over 300 kilometers north of the capital, Addis Ababa. And also in a tweet yesterday, the Ethiopian government said the rebels summarily executed more than 100 youth residents in the Kombolcha area. The TPLF as well has not commented, and there has been no confirmation of those killings. But it's definitely been difficult to verify claims made by both states or both sides in the conflict because communications, they have been restricted. And according to the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, he has expressed alarm over this escalating conflict. Actually, in a tweet, he did say that, he said that continued fighting only prolonged the dire humanitarian crisis in northern Ethiopia.
Yes, and the forces have captured 2 towns, and that is raising fears for the Ethiopian capital. Now, the weakened siege of 2 key towns on the main road to Addis Ababa has alarmed Ethiopian leaders who fear that the rapid advances by the Tigrayan rebel forces may soon threaten the capital itself.
Yeah, it's a very alarming situation at the moment because there were news reports of the TDF fighters fast approaching the area of Kombolcha, and sadly at the moment they've been able to take over that town completely. Internet and telecommunication lines are currently stopped, so people have not been able to reach out to their loved ones at the moment. What we do see on reports are on Twitter, for example. They've said that the TDF fighters had executed about 130 youth belonging to the Amhara ethnicity, and that execution took place over the last few days. So the biggest concern is, of course, the humanitarian crisis in the country, and then the other concern as well is the loss of lives in terms of the conflict, in terms of the widespread killing that's been taking place. A lot of people in the country saying the group of TPLF are carrying house-to-house killing of civilians in Dessie and Kombolcha, and they also tagged different media groups and said that the residents of Eritrean descent have also been brutally murdered. Well, looking at the conflict as a whole, so why did this start? And it was because there is a region called Tigray, which is in the northern parts of Ethiopia, borders the neighboring country, Eritrea, and the ethnic group accounts for 6% of the country's population. Following a major scuffle politically with the incumbent Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, they've decided to take up arms, and they took over a military base in Sero, using tanks and heavy guns and mortars, and that's when the Ethiopian forces began their fight back or an assault, and now the conflict has spiraled out of control to the fact that it's not just the Northern Territory. The TDF has been able to advance further down south to an extent that the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has now called on its citizens to take up arms against the rebel group.
Yeah, and Ethiopia's Africa's second most populous country has about 115 million people. And even before this broke out a year ago was already grappling with daunting economic and social challenges. Now we have millions of people displaced and reports of horrific war crimes, ethnic cleansing being committed during this conflict between the government and the Tigray forces as well. So we'll continue relaying those updates. We know that the United Arab Emirates is delivering aid, ambulances, and health supplies to Ethiopia as we speak. The Emirates Red Crescent is also delivering food and medical supplies as well. So there is a concentrated humanitarian effort from around the world to try and help the people who are suffering the most from this.
Certainly is. And what is the international community doing? Well, the Biden administration has described the situation as a deepening humanitarian crisis. And they've also highlighted the credible reports of human rights abuses. But so far, no major international intervention has taken place in the country to stop the big conflict. It's an ongoing situation, and we'll definitely keep a close eye on it, and it deserves not to be ignored, and we'll continue to keep our focus on the updates from that country. Stay with us. You're listening to the Morning Majlis only on Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
Well, millions of smartphones, they will lose, or they started losing access, or maybe they have already, to popular instant messaging platform WhatsApp as of yesterday. More than 40 smartphone models was actually unable to use the Meta-owned app, which stopped working on systems that are older than Android OS 4.1, Apple's iOS 10, and KOS 2.5. 1, according to its fact section. This means the phone will be incompatible with WhatsApp if you're running an older system. And this includes popular devices such as the Samsung Galaxy S3, Huawei Ascend Mate, and also iPhone 4. There's a whole list of it as well.
Yeah, even the iPhone 6S and the first generation iPhone SEs as well. So that's a very, very tricky prospect as well. One thing... and Ronnie, you might be familiar. Actually, no, you're doing this the other way around. But if you're switching from Apple to Android, they actually have a feature that allows users to migrate chats between the devices. So that's at least a bit of a positive sentiment there, because previously that was not very possible. But yeah, you're going to have to upgrade your phone to adapt to the newer device. This is something that's common. It's not too unusual. Apps typically do stop working on older devices after a period of time because the tech companies and developers, it takes a lot of work and costs to maintain those apps to be used on those older phones. And at some point, they just cut their costs and say, hey, we can't do this anymore.
Yeah, it's very troubling, isn't it? And I just heard that Apple apparently has stopped production of iPads to facilitate the iPhone 13 to support the chip supply towards iPhone 13. And this is where it gets very tricky as well, doesn't it? But there are so many people that actually use the old models. My brother, for example, he was using an iPhone 6, still is, and he's been complaining that his Google Maps doesn't work, and I thought he didn't know how to operate it.
It's like they force you to upgrade your phone.
Basically, yeah. And my brother hasn't upgraded his phone. He's not needed it, and he's one of those victims of this big move, and he's not very pleased. And even though I asked him, saying, you know what, there are plenty of other phones in the market now. I'm sure you can invest. He's like, no, don't want to. My phone works. It's fine. Until now, obviously. But yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? It's something that affects people. And I remember the days when it was just a simple phone model, Nokia N-Gage or Nokia 3110, and that was it. You didn't need software updates.
6600.
Yeah,
the fat Nokia phone.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was, and then the 9210 appeared, which was the with the keyboard. You just didn't need to upgrade.
The games we used to play on them.
The good old Snake.
Snake,
and then Snake 2 came about, and then
Snake 2.
I just kept growing.
Good old times. I love those times. Simple times and very different as well. I think back then, just phones were just to communicate.
I like the flip phones where you push a button and the thing goes up, the cover.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
And then the
Blackberries.
flashy lights, Blackberry.
Whatever happened to Blackberries?
pay.
Yeah, you had to exchange BB pins with people.
Right?
It was such a
Yeah.
hassle.
It was
such a hassle.
But it was a thing for a while.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
a thing. It's
That
like
was the free
you're part of the
WhatsApp.
cool club if you had
the BBM
a
pins.
BBM pin and a BlackBerry.
Good times, but things have changed. So sadly, for all iPhone 6 users, WhatsApp has stopped working ever since the 1st of November, and there's plenty of other Android phones that the WhatsApp is not going to support and back. So let us know what your contingency plan had been, and if you've upgraded your phone, and what the impact of such a change has been for you. Stay with us on the Morning Majlis. Plenty of conversations and plenty of topics to share before we draw the Morning Majlis to a close, and then we will ring in the celebrations of the Sharjah International Book Fair. Text us on 4215.
If you liked this episode of The Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.